How about this thought? Smash the like button if you agree that Chris Jericho gives full creative control a bad name in professional wrestling.
It's crazy how nobody knows what full creative control means. Absolutely nobody in the IWC knows what full creative control means. All you want to do is scapegoat Tony Khan for everything. Even I don't do that, right? Let's talk about Sasha Banks. Even she said she has full creative control. Do you know what that means? Full creative control has been around before you kids were even born. That's facts. Hollywood Hogan has had full creative control since the 1980s. Let that sink in. Hogan has been in control of his character since the 1980s. What part of that don't you understand? It was his choice to put over the Warrior. That's facts. Let's talk about Kevin Nash. He thought it was a great idea for him to beat Bill Goldberg. But guess what? Eric Bischoff, he couldn't say shit. Why? Kevin Nash had full creative control. So it was his choice to beat Bill Goldberg. Now, do you get it? Do you get it? Let's blame Max. You have to blame MJF for his failures for the past 2 years. It's his fault. Why? His character is now stale. For the past 4 years, that's on Max. For the past 4 years of his career, that's called full creative control. Max has had it for the past 4 years. That's not on Tony Khan. Let's just call it the FCC. Full creative control. Max has had it. Same with Edge. Hell, there was a recent press conference, a recent media scrum, where somebody asked Tony Khan, man, why didn't you stop Edge from jumping off the steel cage? And then Tony Khan said, who's going to tell him no? That's what he said on record. Go back and look it up on YouTube. He said that. He said, who is going to tell Edge no? That's called the FCC. Full creative control. The FCC. No, bitch, that's not how that works. Don't blame Con Man for Max feuding with old guys like Jarrett and Goldust. Don't blame TK. You gotta blame Max. These are his ideas. It's his choice on whether or not he wants to work with this guy or that girl. It's his choice. That's how that works. That's called the FCC. He writes all his angles. What part of that don't you understand, man? Max writes all his angles, not Khan. Khan, all he does is co-signs it. Why? That's all he can do based on what the contract says. Same with Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho also has FCC. Hence, the dumbass learning tree. Those are his ideas. The Jericho Appreciation Society, that was a Jericho idea. The Inner Circle, that was a Jericho idea. Jericho working with Max, that was a Chris Jericho idea. When I first found out that Cody Rhodes re-signed back with the World Wrestling Federation, I found out that Cody Rhodes had FCC in his contract. That's what I told people. Why? Because that was true. Look it up. He has full creative in his character. Only the big names in all Elite Fake Pro Wrestling has full FCC, like a Max, Jericho, Dean Ambrose, Sasha Banks, fucking Daniel Bryan, CM Junk. They have full FCC. Tony Khan, he can't do shit. He can't say no to Chris Jericho. He can't say no to Max. He can't say no to Sasha Banks. He can't say no to Edge. He can't say no to Dean Ambrose. Because based on their contracts, he can't say no. Yes, Maxwell has gotten stale. You can't blame Tony Khan for that. That's not fair. If Max has full FCC in his contract, Tony Khan, he has to nod his head every time Max pitches an idea. That goes for Dean Ambrose, Edge, fucking Sasha Banks, Jericho. Good Lord, man, some idiot told me that I have to blame Tony Khan for Max being stale. I gotta blame Tony Khan for forcing Max to wrestle Goldust and Jeff Jarrett. Are you that fucking stupid? Bruh, when I diss Tony Khan, I provide context and logic. There's no logic in blaming Tony Khan for Max being stale. You cannot blame Tony Khan for that, right? Max barely wrestles on TV, right? Whose idea is that? Obviously, Max wants to wrestle part-time, but Max, he signs off on all his promos, not Khan. Khan don't give two shits about what Max says in his promos. So, where do you get off blaming Tony Khan for Max falling off? Whose fault is that if he has full FCC in his contract? He signed off on working with Goldust and Jeff Jarrett, etc. He signed off on working with Danny Garcia. Let me give you another example on full FCC. Let's talk about Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was known for not putting people over during the 90s. He was known for not wanting to drop the belt to anybody during his era in his prime. What does that tell you? That's called full FCC. Let's talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin. There's a rumor that Austin did not want to work with Billy Gunn and Jeff Jarrett. Why? Because those guys were mid-carders, and Austin felt like he was a main eventer. That would have been a step down. So Vince had no choice but to be on Stone Cold Steve Austin's side, because Austin was a main eventer and he had full FCC in his contract. Austin had the power to pick and choose who he wanted to work with. Let's talk about Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania. There was talks that Shawn Michaels almost did not want to put over Stone Cold Steve Austin. Let that sink in. All right, let's talk about Hollywood Hogan. He chose to put over Lex Luger. He chose to put over Bill Goldberg. Also, let's talk about Hollywood Hogan burying Bret Hart at WrestleMania versus Yokozuna. That was Hollywood Hogan's idea to replace Bret Hart after his match against Yokozuna. That was Hogan's idea. Why? Because Hogan had full FCC. He thought that was a good idea to come in as a superhero and replace Bret Hart versus Yokozuna at WrestleMania. That's called full FCC. Bret Hart, he couldn't say shit because he had no power like a Hollywood Hogan back then. Yes, Bret Hart was pissed off, but it is what it is. He had no power. Hollywood Hogan had more power backstage, so Bret Hart couldn't say shit. So that's why Hollywood Hogan beat Yokozuna for the world title at WrestleMania. That was his idea to do that. So when you look at the angle of the Death Rider BBC Club with Edge, FTR, Jay White, Dean Ambrose, etc., that is a Edge idea, and that is a Dean Ambrose idea. The only thing that Tony Khan is doing is nodding his head. That's all he's doing. These past 3 years, seeing Max, that's on Max. That is not on Tony Khan. Max, he co-signs everything. These are his ideas. The only thing Khan is doing is just nodding his head. He never says no to Max. That's what I mean by full FCC. He never says no to Chris Jericho. He never says no to Edge. He never says no to Dean Ambrose. He never says no to Max. So please stop blaming Tony Khan for Max falling off. That's not how that works. Do you know what full FCC means? Look at Sasha Banks. There's a huge difference between Sasha Banks and Mercedes Moné. Huge difference. Sasha Banks said it with her own mouth that she has full FCC in All Elite Fake Pro Wrestling. That's why Sasha Banks sucks in All Elite Fake Pro Wrestling. How come Edge, Dean Ambrose, Sasha Banks, Chris Jericho, how come their stars have fallen off since being in All Elite Fake Pro Wrestling? How come Chris Jericho was worshipped when he was in the World Wrestling Federation? Because Jericho had no full FCC. That was on Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon booked Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho never had full FCC in the World Wrestling Federation. If you can't stand Sasha Banks and Chris Jericho, you have to blame them, but not Tony Khan. This is what they wanted. They wanted full FCC. So you can't blame TK for that. Chris Jericho and Sasha Banks are prime examples of full FCC gone wrong. Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it, but you might get exposed at the same time. Just remember this. Chris Jericho pitched an idea for him versus Kevin Owens to main event WrestleMania. Let that sink in. Chris Jericho has bad ideas. That did not age well. There's no way in hell that was going to draw money. KO versus Chris Jericho in the main event at WrestleMania? That's crazy. Everybody has been exposed without the genius of Vince McMahon and Triple H since joining All Elite Fake Pro Wrestling. The only time Tony Khan should be blamed is when he is booking somebody who doesn't have full FCC, like a Powerhouse Hobbs or a Big Cass, Wardlow. People like that. For example, Malachi Black. Obviously, that guy did not have full FCC, hence why he left. Just look at Jamie Hayter. Jamie Hayter has no full FCC, hence why she's been booked like a low-tier mid-carder. Here's why you cannot blame Tony Khan for Maxwell falling off. Here's why. For the past 4 years, this man has been in the same angles multiple times a year, where he makes you fight in a gauntlet for maybe 4 weeks, where it's like you have to fight maybe 4 guys in order to fight Maxwell in a pay-per-view. So how can you blame Tony Khan for that? That's a red flag. Whose idea is that? To put Maxwell in the same angles multiple times a year, where if you are beefing with Max, you have to fight in a gauntlet in order to fight him in a pay-per-view? And Tony Khan has to nod his head and approve these angles that Max pitches because Max is lazy. That's called laziness, right? That means you have no ideas. That's called being lazy. Where every guy you fight is the same fucking angles. He did that with Adam Coleslaw, Jericho, Wardlow, everybody. He does that. You have to fight in a gauntlet. He did that to CM Junk. What does that tell you? You cannot blame TK. These are his ideas because he's lazy. That's facts, right? Because if Max has had the same character since 2019, how is it far-fetched? If these are his boring-ass ideas that has not evolved. The same angles, every guy is the same angle. He makes you fight multiple guys just to fight him one-on-one in every fucking feud. I'm telling you, it's the same shit every year. Let me pay off Lance Archer so he can take out Will Ospreay. Let me pay off Brian Cage so he can take out Adam Coleslaw. Same shit over and over and over again. You see, that's called pattern of behavior that you cannot pin on Tony Khan. It's called clues. If Maxwell's character has not evolved since 2019, if that guy does not want to put in any kind of effort on evolving his character, what makes you think Maxwell will put in any effort to evolve his angles, his feuds? That's called pattern of behavior that matches. So with that being said, it's not far-fetched to say Tony Khan has zero to do with the failures of Maxwell these past 3 years.